Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya. The Pavamana Mantra. You've maybe heard this before. Sometimes I sing it this way. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya. But when I'm doing it and it's a call and response, I do it the first way. Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya. Om. Pavamana Mantra. My teacher K-Tool taught this to me, and his teacher taught it to him. And I'm not trying to be romantic about this. This is a very common mantra among Western yoga teachers. And of course, it goes beyond that too. But maybe you've heard it before if you've taken a yoga class and they threw some chanting in there. So this is some Sanskrit that I've chanted for years and years and years since I guess my first yoga class was when I was 18 years old. And it felt great to get to a point where I had it memorized, and then it felt great to get to the point where I had understanding of the translation of it. And it has just been something that's lived with me the way a poem lives with one or a song. And I think about it a lot, and it's changed for me over the years. And it's the right thing right now to consider. So I think I'll chant it one more time, and then I'll talk about it. I'll get to what I'm getting to here. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya Mrytorma Amritamgamaya. What is going on anyway? I'm so glad you're here with me as we embark on this full moon. It's an interesting full moon. The third month, the third day, and it's an eclipse. Hello and welcome, or welcome back. I am your host, Ann Headley, and this is my podcast, What is Going On Anyway?, where I take some time every 2 weeks to check in on the moon, whether it's new or full, and I share what's coming up for me as an intuitive and as an artist. I use my imagination and my intuition together to tell a story, to share what's going on by surfing the present moment. Sometimes I call it channeling. Most recently, I've been calling it a hybrid of channeling and imagination. And I'm wondering over using imagination as a good way to brainstorm for the future. I hope this inspires you to look for your own waves of presence, to look for your own imaginings around the future, dreams of falling in love with your own future, And ultimately, I hope this becomes an internal revolution that I believe is necessary to usher us into the future collaboration of being here together. I'm always especially interested in my own and others' experiences of spirituality, of self-inquiry, and the question, what are we here for? And what is the meaning of life? So we've got heavy times. The full moon is heavy, by the way, if you haven't figured this out by now. It feels to me like just dragging my whole life around with me, trying to tidy up, but I'm like sloshing slime behind me everywhere I go as I try to tidy up. I don't think it's gonna get tidy. I think it's a messy moment. And I follow this witch on Instagram, and she was doing capturing the energy of the eclipse. Now, a lot of indigenous folks, shamans and witches, just almost ignore eclipses because they're kind of intense energies and not great energies. She was saying, maybe you want to capture a little bit of this. Put a glass out, put a jar out for this. I know this is probably too late for you to hear this, but if you could get it out while the eclipse is happening, you capture a little bit of that energy of this one particularly is a kind of letting go of things that no longer serve you. And I've done a lot of this in my New Age journey of kind of letting go and saying, oh, all contracts that don't serve me are null and void and that kind of thing. But I'm a sucker for some good magic, so I'm going to take it. I've got my jar in the window, and this particular kind of letting go that's a precise letting go of whether we like it or not. Unseen things are being seen. And when things come into the light of our consciousness, not just like the light of day, but the light of our consciousness, like, oh, yeah, oh no, it looks different in the light of day. It looks different in the light of my knowing, of my consciousness, my own kind of sunshine, than it did when it was hidden in kind of lurking in the depths. It had a different kind of gravity. And in fact, it changes its gravity as it comes up into the light. Like imagine the gravitational force of a seed. And then as it reaches out with its roots, and then it starts to pull carbon from the air and create more and more plant matter, the gravity of this thing changes, right? So I'm seeing some of these unseen things, these things that just lived in the dark spaces, that as they come into the light, and I don't mean that like hierarchically, I just mean that the light of our consciousness has the power to transform things, as does the light of our creativity, the juice of our creativity, the spiraling of ideas transforms. It transforms the world. And that is why I'm hopeful in this moment where I feel heavy and I feel draggy. I'm really pretty tired. This full moons are hard sleeping times, right? Most of us know that. This one it kind of feels like all of winter is coming along with me. Like I'm still in hibernation and moving in slow motion, and I just don't have my sense of rhythm for whatever this year is going to be for me. I hope some of that resonates with you. And that jar or glass is filled with water, by the way. P.S. I forgot to tell you that. So water capturing this moment that you can then use as you wish. You can put it into your bath sometimes. You can take a little sip of it sometimes when you need some clarity around. And I think the clarity astrologers are saying is coming from the fact that this moon is in Virgo. So the Virgo clarity of precisely letting go of what needs to be let go of. And always remember, like, if you miss the magic, like you miss the window, it doesn't matter. That kind of magic is happening. It's just in the atmosphere around you. You can let me do it for you. I've got the jar here. So that magic is available for all of us anyway. I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes about sexual assault. And if you need to skip forward or you don't want to hear about that, this is your warning. Like most Americans, I grew up in a family system that was authoritarian. It was the rule of primarily my dad, but the parents made all the rules, and this was standard. It wasn't like my family was different than the other families in the neighborhood. So we were used to behaving and following rules that other people made, whether they made sense or not. Not a democratic family system. And I didn't know anybody that had a system like that. Also, my family and many others were punished with corporal punishment. So we were spanked and hit at the discretion of the parental units. And I'm pretty sure that any of my friends' parents were allowed to hit me if they wanted to. I don't think that would have caused a big ruckus. Also, at the time, teachers were allowed to use corporal punishment. And it's just a huge effect on a growing person to be violently punished. It bugged me, even though I knew it was normal. And even though I know today that there are people who will say, I was spanked and I turned out okay. I always kind of wonder, like, did you? Have you thought about that? What that kind of, we don't even know what got turned off inside of us by being punished when our minds couldn't comprehend why. That was the thing that was really painful for me to know, that I had to accept the punishment. I had to turn off my protest inside of me to survive. And I didn't even think it, like, even looking back, it wasn't like the worst of the worst. And this is the problem when we get to sexual assault. We know that the statistics are 1 out of 4. I believe it's more like 3 out of 4 young people are sexually assaulted. And so I was raised in this culture where I didn't have a whole lot of agency around saying no. And when I was 16, I had a dance teacher that raped me, groomed me and raped me. And I remember very specifically the moment before anything had happened. It was kind of like awkward and weird. And I was in his car and I had the feeling inside of me that I just wanted to run. He had pulled into a parking lot. He said he was going to drive me home and then pulled into a grocery store parking lot. And I had this whole vision of getting out of the car and running into the grocery store where people were and using the payphone to call home. I also knew I could walk home from there, even though it was like weirdly far and I would have had to cross a highway. But I knew that I could. I had that whole vision. And I also knew that it would be weird if I did. And it would be like accusing someone of doing something they hadn't yet done. But I felt completely unsafe. And this part of the grooming was, if you do what I say, you will make it as a dancer. And this was my dream. And I didn't have another dance teacher that was going to send me on the path to professional dancerhood. So all of that stuff, I just internalized as my own shame that I had gotten myself into that situation. Somehow I had to fold it into my life. Years later, I did get to connect with other survivors of this same predator, and that was really healing. And then when the USA gymnasts came out and testified against their predator, Larry Nassar, and sent him to jail, it was hard to watch that, and also pretty healing to watch that. And that was one light of day that clicked in me, which was like, this happened in my small town, and there were hundreds of victims, and Nassar had hundreds or thousands of victims. And I think every town in America has predators, and the mass scale of that. And then on top of that, the society that allows for that to happen and makes it easy for that to happen to children. And now on top of that, all that's coming out with the Epstein files and the depth of predation that we're seeing. And that isn't singular. This is just another pocket of what happens everywhere. So I feel this like deep fury that I'm holding. I don't want it just to dissipate, because I want this fire to change that story so that children are protected. And I can feel my fury at knowing and seeing the ways that from bottom to top, from left to right, everywhere you look, we have a society that is built for predation, for extraction. It's built not for people, and it makes me furious. And that's something that, for me, is coming out to the light of my consciousness, that I'm seeing it differently because I can see through the way I held it together with my own shame and my own need to, I didn't run out of the car that day because I had my own dreams and I couldn't see my way around not having to deal with this teacher was my step into the dance world. And obviously that's not true, but that is what I believed, and that kept me convinced, along with his calculated grooming, that I had to do what he said that I had to do. Phew. Okay. Maybe you should know that he did, not because I helped for this to happen, but he was convicted and he was sent to prison and he was deported eventually. It doesn't make me feel good because I don't know that anything has changed. I don't know that he is not continuing that behavior in his country of origin. And nothing has really systematically changed. And I think that's where we are collectively needing to imagine a world that is safe for all. And what is terrifying about that is looking at how deeply it is unsafe for the planet itself, and for children, and for humans, and for communities, and for indigenous folks, and for people of color, and for immigrants. And that, in order for it to change, it feels like everything has to reform, and it feels heavy. So that's where we're at. I don't know how this goes down, of course. And yet, the answers are so small and have to do with Can you feel your body? Because this is like the ultimate relationship that we have. Can you feel your breath again? Do you know where you are? Is it safe right now? Usually the answer is yes. If not, then you've got kind of like clear information about what to do. I always love when I call my eye doctor or my osteopath and get the answering machine that says, if this is an emergency, hang up and call 911. And, sometimes there are emergencies, but the thing about emergencies is they clarify. All of the fluff goes to the side and you've got to do this now. But we don't want an emergency. I'm just saying most of the time we can get back to our bodies and our breath and remember, oh yeah, there's a place in there that feels okay. I'm going to go rest there for a minute. I'm going to go stay with myself and my body. And I just want to say I'm bringing up my past because that's one of those dark things that's coming to my consciousness. I can see it more clearly, and I can see a pathway to changing a future so my grandchildren don't experience that same kind of abuse that I did, that something changes fundamentally. So the environment, it just doesn't happen. It can't happen, or it certainly can't happen as prevalently. For me to raise my children in a non-authoritarian household, I'm questioning that even as I say it, because there is a power structure that as an adult I have more power, but less authoritarian than so maybe it's just these, is it just these shades of relief from that as we move toward something that looks like real democracy, something that looks like each person, no matter their age, has human agency and is respected and valued. We're a long way from that. That's what feels hard. It's like I cannot see the pathway through that muck. And so I am going to come back to this mantra, the Pavamana Mantra. And I want to talk about what it means. The first time it was translated for me, it was translated as a prayer or directive or a wishing. And it didn't say please, but it was sort of like, please lead me from the unreal to the real. And some translations even say, lead me from the evil to the good. Lead me from the darkness to the light, from ignorance to knowledge, and from death to immortality. And that's how I began. Like, that was easy for me. That feels like it has kind of a Christian church slant to it. Lead me from the evil to the good. Lead me from darkness to light. Lead me from death to immortal life or heavenly life. And more recently, I've been translating it this way. There is unrealness around us, and there is the real. So in the unreal is the real, in the real is the unreal. It's all a big mess. This is not helpful at all. And there is stuckness sometimes, and there is brilliant illumination sometimes. And that tamas, the stuckness, tamasoma. Sometimes we're just stuck in the mud and the muck. And sometimes we stand in the brilliant light of the sun and the stars. And there's death. And this is the part that makes my heart crack a little bit. There's death and there's immortality. And both of these things are true. We know there's death. But if this is true, there is something beyond death. There is something that does not die. And that also is true. And so while I manage this mantra, it does feel like one of the translations of Pavamana is being strained, being purified. Tricky word for me, purified. But imagine you are a spirit and you drop into a body, and the body is like the strainer in your kitchen. And that the body just strains that spirit right through just to see what happens. Like it's just an experiment. I don't know if you were like me as a kid. I would just love to get my hands on things and pretend I was doing experiments. I would go into the bathroom and take a little of this and a little toothpaste and a little baby powder and mix it up and think I was experimenting. So imagine that we are a giant experiment. We're being strained through a body, and the body's dense and genetic experiences. Like we don't really choose, our bodies have certain experiences based on how they're formed. And how they're formed has to do with the whole line of history that we come from. So this straining is sitting with this uncomfortable ignorance that there is darkness and there's light, and we need to make sense of that. Now, as an artist, there's always darkness and light. The darkness in a theater gives us that magic when the light comes on, when the light shows us something. So there's darkness and there's light, and the two together give us something really special. And there are times when we're stuck because we are people in bodies. And there's times when we have brilliant insight. And then there's death, and we see it and experience it. And there is something that goes beyond death. What I can do right now as kind of a thought experience is think about my sweet, lovey, darling Peabody, who's a dog. And maybe you have an animal, because I don't want to send you into the bonds of having to think about maybe a past loved one that's a human. That's a little more complicated. But if you can think of a pet that you really loved and that you had a connected relationship with, and all you do sort of is conjure their face and their feeling. And for me, what happens is I have a feeling like he's next to me, like this sweet, soft moment of ease and relaxation. Maybe I'm reading a book and Peabody is on the couch next to me, just pressed in, and we're both breathing together. And that soft, sweet feeling of togetherness I can conjure it. It's present for me as if he were here. And that to me is a form or an experience of immortality. Something continues. So this moment for me is about sitting inside the knowing and finding a calm space to be, inside knowing that there is darkness and light, there is evil and good, and we're all in the mix of it, even inside our own selves. There is stuckness, there is ignorance and knowledge and truth and brilliance, illumination. There is death and there is immortality. And we are all in that swirling pot. And so when things arrive, every day is like waking up to a new news cycle that's like unbelievable. And then I think of that mantra. Yep, there's ignorance and there's knowledge. There's darkness and light. And I'm watching it all, like the world turning as the world turns. It's like a giant soap opera, right? What is real? And the stories that we carry, this is a funny thing, like some of the stories that I carry in me are as real as any real thing that ever happened to me. And that is true in my body. So what is real? What is important to understand about the story of our lives? And I'm coming back around to this again because coming back into this idea of creativity being something that is so important to access right now. Because sometimes we'll say, oh, but that's not true. Oh, but I'm just making it up. And I think it's important to lean into that. Like maybe what we think is not true or what we think is being made up is just as real as any other aspect of life, and that it just takes a little bit of courage to lean into the things that are not yet true that will be true one day. And let our gravity lean over in that direction of the untruths that become true. So it's time to see what the I Ching has to say about all of this. So, dear Oracle, what would you have us know about this moment now, about this full moon, this eclipse time, and this particular moment that we're all experiencing together? What would you have us know that helps us understand this better? We get hexagram 41, which is not one that I understand well. It's called decreasing. It's also diminishing and the offering. But listen to this. Diminish your involvement, decrease your desire, aim at a higher goal, see the significant pattern of things, sight of creative transformation. Hilary Barrett asked these questions with hexagram 41. Why do you want to make such an offering? How much is truly asked of you? Could this be simpler? The I Ching offers reassurance. Even when you have little to give, making offerings is not wrong. Trusting your insight and persevering in your chosen direction, you understand why you are doing this, rather than dwelling on what you are giving up. You may still wonder how you can do it, or how much you are expected to give, but the offering need only be modest, not hundreds of animals, but just 2 baskets. You are not asked to give beyond your means. And then I want to read out of this Stephen Karcher Total I Ching. Diminishing the offering, a connection to the spirits will carry you through. Wise words. The way to the source is open. This is not a mistake. This is an enabling trial. Advantageous to have a direction to go. You ask how to make use of this. 2 vessels allow you to make the presentation. Diminishing describes your situation in terms of loss, sacrifice, and the need for concentration. The way to deal with it is to decrease your involvements and free yourself from emotional entanglements. This makes energy available for new developments. Act this way with confidence, for you are connected to the spirits and they will carry you through. This is the origin of great good fortune and meaningful events. It is not a mistake. This is an enabling divination. Put your ideas to the trial. Have a place to go. Impose a direction on things. That brings profit and insight. Inquire into motivations. Ask yourself why you are doing things. Use 2 ceremonial vessels to present your results to the spirits. Not sure what to make of the 2 ceremonial vessels, but play with it. I think it's okay to be silly and symbolic and have fun with it. Whatever the two vessels means as your offering, as your way to make an offering to this moment now. I did pick up this little zine that is called Facing Fascism Sabotage, and it's by revoluciana.net. You might be able to look that up yourself if you like. But I just want to say this because it seems to be in relationship to this 41 decreasing. Sabotage sounds spicy. It sounds dangerous. And yet the underlying concept is simply this: inefficiency. Resistance is the word no. Resistance is standing in place. A lot of us have this deep insecurity around productivity, not being worthy and not being productive. And so when we have, say, a lazy day, it can wear on something inside of us that feels the insecurity of losing belonging because the productivity or efficiency or getting stuff done is how we feel good about ourselves. So what if one act of resistance to the world moving in a direction we may not agree with is to become inefficient? There's something that feels humorous about that. And when something is funny to me, that is the direction I lean. That feels safe. And that feels, because I know, I'm sorry I'm popcorning around here, but I know what happens for me when I talk to animals and I talk to, people who don't have bodies anymore. The thing that makes me trust those conversations is humor. And when it is funny to me, I relax and I trust the conversation, and then I share it with other people. And so the idea of inefficiency occurs to me to be hilarious. And so I know that that is one right move for me. How could I be less efficient? How could I decrease my dependence on companies that don't align philosophically with me? How could I slow things down and get myself aligned with organizations and corporations that believe in the same things that I do? One more thing about this hexagram 41. It says, to release blocked energy, you must have a way to let things go. And so we're being told that this full moon eclipse is a letting go. Like it or not, some things are coming up. Some things are going to be let go of. And for our own selves, that sense of blockage, and just having bodies, we have moments of blockage. It just sounds like I'm talking about poop, but I mean, anybody who's done body work, sometimes we just get stuck, we get locked up. And there's always moments needed of letting go, or letting our energies flow, letting things go. This is the way for the beginning of increasing. It's almost like the picture I'm seeing is needing to, like something's stopping the flow of water and just needing to let that release or pull the plug on that so that the flow can begin again, like a water wheel, like just a continuous flow. And if you've ever seen like a picture of a mill and the water having the mill go round, and then the mill turns something else, and then that makes something else go round, and that can be the beginning of a whole community's economy. That's what I'm seeing the picture of. Like, we need to get the flow going, because that starts to turn gears in local economies. And I'm talking about the economy around your own self and where it goes from there. When your gears are turning, you are helping other people and the economy of community around you. Okay, so this gets us what we need for this moment now. Allowing a natural letting go. And it might be a little sense of the pulling the plug out, kind of like if we're used to the murky water and the plug gets pulled out, it can feel intense until we get back into that natural kind of cycle of coming and going. So may you be safe and cozy and have lots of moments of inefficiency and relaxation and non-productivity in these next 2 weeks. And you can always reach out to me at my website, www.annhedley.com, ANNHEDLY.com. May you be well, and may you know peace, and may all beings everywhere, whether known to us or unknown, may they be well, and may they know peace. Bye for now.